Hi everyone, this is Kamau. Welcome back to my channel. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe. Now I want to ask you a question. How long ago did you leave high school? No, I was thinking the other day and I was saying, I left high school about 30 years ago. And I'm just thinking back at, the way we were when we were at high school from first form up to sixth form. We were most of us were so innocent, so naive. And I'm just thinking back at some of the things that we did just for fun, just to, just being girls. Now, I went to an all-girls Catholic high school. But before that, I went to an all-age school where we had a mixture of boys and girls. And I remember from basic school, which would be equivalent to kindergarten, coming up primary school, or in my case, all-age school, straight up to high school, I was pretty much considered to be a well-behaved child. I was a model student, at least in my teacher's eyes. I was a valedictorian at my all-age school. And at high school, I would be the last one that anyone would suspect of doing any wrong. I just had this angel face, this soft voice, and I did my share of mischief, but I don't think my teachers would ever believe that. And I was thinking, I'm going to do a video about 8 things that my former teachers would never believe about me. No, they are nothing outrageous, even though if you make it to number 8, you're going to be letting on a secret. I don't think I've ever revealed this one to anybody, so number 8 would be, that's something that I've kept to myself pretty much, or in my diary, but never revealed to anyone. So stick around for that, and as we move along, feel free to comment and let me know. First of all, how long ago did you leave high school? Is it as close to my 30 years, almost 30 years, or even further than that? Let me know. And how do you feel to be so old? And let me know also, was there anything you did in high school that you think your teachers would never believe about you? Now, I know some of us were just outright mischievous, and there's nothing at all that a teacher would not believe we're capable of doing. I'm not talking to you this morning. I'm talking about the little angels, the little ones who had that sweet little face and that little voice, and like myself. And if the teachers ever knew what we were up to, detention, suspension, maybe even expulsion. So let me know in the comments what you got up to in your high school years. Now, as I said, we're going to go through 8 points that I can remember. I'm sure there are more, but for now, 8 points. So the first one, my teachers would never believe that I almost got into a fight over a man when I was in first form. First form, I was what, 11? 11. No, there was this girl. She actually came from my community, and she also went to the same high school. We looked like identical twins. We could pass for identical twins. So those who knew me back then, I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. We just looked like twins. And now there was this bus driver that we both had a crush on. And in the mornings, he would make sure, because I was so tiny and just so, like I said, I looked like an angel. So he would make sure to save a space for me right behind him in the bus, because many times we had to stand up in the bus all the way, and the number 33 bus was a crowded bus. It was that's a point I'm going to raise to later though. So he would always make room for me, and this girl my twin, she felt like he was giving me too much attention. I remember we are 11 years old. 11. And as far as I was concerned, this was my man. And as far as she was concerned, this was her man, because he was looking out for us and whatever. So on one particular morning when we came off the bus, she decided that she was going to tackle me about it, the fact that I was getting special treatment on the bus from this bus driver. And we started arguing and tossing words back and forth about leave my man and don't do this to my man. Hello, 11 years old. So as we were walking down, when we looked back, we saw that there was actually the head girl walking behind us and listening in on all of this argument. And so we both ended up with, I think it was, if it wasn't a detention, it was a suspension. No, I don't think it was a suspension, but maybe a demerit. I don't remember. It's so long ago. But yeah, that's number one, right? Getting into an argument with this girl over this bus driver he was probably 30-something. 30-something. But I guess our hormones were just raging. And we had no idea what it meant to be in a relationship or anything like that. I guess we were watching too much TV and this whole notion of having a man and whatever. So we took that onto ourselves and got into this heated argument and got punished for it. So number two, my teachers, I don't think they would ever believe that sometimes when I got permission slips to leave the school to go to the library, I did not go to the library. No, most times I went, because back in those days, we actually had to go to the library. If we had research to do, we had to present ourselves physically to the library, get several books, do research, photocopy, write out stuff. We actually had to do that. It's not like modern times where you can just download stuff and copy and paste and whatever. We actually had to go to the physical books and do the research. So most times, yes, I did go, particularly in the upper school. We would have to go to the office, get a permission slip, and so we could leave during the school day to go to the library. But some of the times, I actually went to the record store because I was just obsessed with 70s music, the Stylistics, the Shylights, the Temptations, the Delphonics. That's where my lunch money went. So sometimes when I left school, I would be downtown or in Halfway Tree looking around for new music shops, record shops, to get audio cassettes, LPs, the 45s. That's where my lunch money went, in 70s music. Or sometimes I would go to the Bob Marley Museum. I made friends with one of the workers there, and we would sit and talk about Black history and Rastafari, because at that time I was searching and I was getting into my Afrocentricity, and to me at the time Rastafari was the closest thing to that. So every Rasta man on the street, I would stop him and we'd have an interview. So I would find my way to the Bob Marley Museum or to the 12 Tribes of Israel headquarters on Hope Road, and for hours I would be there interviewing these Rasta men when I should have been at the library. I remember one time I went to Mrs. Fraser. She was the Dean of Discipline, I think. We had to go there to get the permission slip. And I told her I was going somewhere. They was having this function related to students, and I told her I was going. And she decided to give me a little quiz, you know, to find out, okay, what's going to be taking place, where is it? And I was clueless. I just knew I heard my friends talking about this function, and I was just going to use that as an excuse to get the permission slip to go and buy my cassettes or to go and do my interviews. So when she started asking me these questions and she saw that I had no clue what this function was about, why was I going to this function, you know, she chased me out of the office, right? So my teachers, they would not believe that I would do something like that, I'm sure. Okay, number 3, my teachers would not believe that many times when I was in class appearing to take notes, I was not actually taking any notes. What I was doing was writing out the songs from the cassettes. So I would write out word for word because I knew hundreds of songs at this time. Because I used to live by the radio, and I used to have this Walkman playing cassettes over and over. So I knew these songs word for word. So when they saw me taking notes, I was actually writing out word for word the songs, stylistic songs, Charlotte songs, Temptations, all of these. I had tons of these songs. Or I was, you know, doodling. I love to draw little hearts and faces and so on. And if I look back at my notebooks now, I would see everything is just, because in my mind, I was going to get married to Russell Tompkins Jr., who was the lead singer of the Statistics. If it wasn't him, it was going to be Eugene Record of the Shylights, right? So I had 2 husbands in waiting, and I would write notes to them, you know, I love you, Russell, I love you, Eugene, all that kind of, that's what I was actually writing. I was not taking any notes sometimes. So when I was in maths class, history class, geography class, it did not matter. I probably was half there, right? Half here, half there. Okay, number 4. So number 4, my teachers would not believe, I don't think they would ever believe, I had a crush on almost every male teacher from 3rd form to 6th form. Almost every male teacher. My hormones were raging. And I had a best friend in 3rd form up to 5th form. She was my best friend. Now, I was the ringleader in the mischief. And, you know, we'd leave class and go and lay wait. So, for example, if we knew that a particular teacher would be passing at that time, we'd go and we'd hide off and look at him and carry on. And I mean, we're just being innocent, just crazy. We weren't doing anything wrong, right? The most I would say that we did wrong was we used to write these notes, these love letters, and so we were in 3rd form. We'd write these love letters to a particular teacher. Let's call him Mr. W. Mr. W. And then we'd go in, we'd give the letter to maybe a little 1st former and tell her, go and deliver this letter to Mr. W. Now, Mr. W used to sit at a particular place in the staff room. So we would run into the bathroom and look to see when the letter would get to him, and we'd watch as he read it and look at his face. And sometimes we'd say, meet me under the tree, or meet me here, or wherever. And he would actually go. He would actually go. So we'd watch him go, and then he'd be looking around and nobody come to him. My goodness. Sometimes I would, write little love notes to other teachers. For example, we wrote this note, the song that says, "What are you doing Sunday? I want to marry you." Stuff like that. We were just crazy, and those were the kind of things that we did. My bestie from grade 9, if you're watching, We need to repent. I can't believe we put Mr. W through all of that. We really need to repent. Don't you agree? All right, so number 5, my teachers would not believe that I skipped school many times. So sometimes my friend and I, this is another best friend also, this is 6th form now. We would go to school, mark our attendance, you know, and when the teacher does the register, we'd mark ourselves present. And then we would go back, leave our bags at school, and then we would go back through the gates. And we would take a bus from halfway tree, and we'd go to the country. Now, my friend, her mom lives in the country in St. Catherine. She lived in a district called Redwood. And we would go, we took like 2 buses and a taxi. That's how far away it was. So we'd have to take a bus to Spanish Town, take another bus to Linstead, and then take a cab up to Redwood while school was in session, right? And her mom was so accommodating, and her big sister, they would cook for us, they would welcome us, because her mom usually hadn't seen her in a while. She lived with her relatives. And we would go to the mango walk, you know, we'd look for mangoes, we'd be shelling peas, we'd be cooking, we'd be doing all kind of things. You know, like I said, we weren't in trouble, we weren't getting into any trouble or doing any hanky-panky with anyone, and her mom was so accommodating, but we were supposed to be at school. And this happened maybe about 5 or so times during my 6th form year. So that was our little escapade that we went on. And then we'd go back when we knew school was about to end. We'd go back and collect our bags and go home. Number 6, things that my teacher would never believe. Well, I don't think my teachers would, not that they wouldn't believe, but I don't think they would understand how grueling my commute was to get to school. No, I went to school in Halfway Tree, and that's a long way from where I lived. I lived in Red Hills, in Upper St. Andrew, rural St. Andrew. And the bus that I took to get to school, the number 33 bus, for those who know, that bus was, oh my God, it was, first of all, we could hardly get a bus, because many times the bus break down, all kind of problems. And so in the mornings, I'd have to get up at 4. My grandpa would wake me up, and along with my aunt, and we'd wake up at 4 a.m. We'd have to go up to the square, get a bus, go in the opposite direction to Rock Hall, and back down off the hill. So sometime when there was no bus, we'd actually have to walk to school, walk it off the hill. Or I remember once we got a ride. For a couple of months, our transport was in the back of a delivery truck, an enclosed delivery truck, right? So we'd be in there just holding on, like you couldn't see anything, you couldn't see anybody in there with you. You just knew that there was this mass of people huddled in the back of the truck, and we're all heading to Halfway Tree. So by the time I got to school, sometimes I was exhausted because of that whole experience of having to get up so early. And then coming back, same thing. You'd be at the bus stop for 1 hour, 2 hours, no bus. Sometimes we'd have to walk home, and this is uphill. So many times we didn't get home till 6, 7, 8 o'clock in the night, and have to repeat that again in the mornings. So my teachers had no clue what my commute was like, how grueling it was. Number 7, I wasn't the only one who did this, but I actually went into the chemistry labs, and I messed with all the chemicals that were there. Looking back, I'm wondering, why did they leave those chemicals? Because some of them had, the hazardous, the skeleton head on it, dangerous chemicals, and we would just be there mixing them, looking at the fumes rising, smelling the toxic fumes, the bubbles, and we'd be just there experimenting because the lab wasn't closed, We'd go in there, and in the mornings before school or lunchtime or wherever, we'd just go and experiment. And even the biology lab, I would go in the little side room where they keep the preserves. They had a lot of things in the glass bottles, in the formaldehyde. Embryos, human embryos, mouse embryos, and we'd just be there opening and I feel so ashamed of my behavior. I probably need to say 100 Hail Marys right now for that. Because I had enough sense to know I should not do that. But as girls, as children, you love to experiment, and you don't feel that the danger can affect you. Right, so we felt like we knew what we were doing. We were chemists and we were doing whatever. Luckily, none of us got hurt as far as I know. And hopefully, safer measures are employed now, to ensure that these chemicals, the students are not exposed to these chemicals. But back then, as far as I can remember, we had access. We could just walk in, and they were labeled, yes, but we did as we pleased with them. I'm very ashamed. I must tell you, I am ashamed. Okay. The last one, number 8, as I promised. I don't think I've ever told anyone this, and I don't think any of my teachers suspected, but many times those very labs, for example, especially the physics lab, which was the top floor, the 3rd floor, I would go there, and whenever I was sad, depressed, I would just cry. That was like my place of solace, or my place to express whatever I was going through, as a teenager. A very weird one too, an introverted one. If I did have a best friend, it was just that one girl who I clung to. You know how introverts are. We find this one person and we single them out and we cling to them. But I guess most persons saw me as eccentric, and I was. And so sometimes I felt sad and whatever, I'm maybe going through other things. And I would just go to the physics lab and I would cry my eyes out. 15 minutes, half an hour, whatever time I needed. And then I'll just dry my eyes and come out, and I don't think anyone ever suspected that was my solace. And I'm sure for a lot of teenagers, especially, school is that solace. And as a teacher now, I know that my students, they find much comfort in coming to school, and we allow them that space to express themselves. And now we're experiencing the COVID lockdown now, and some of my students have been crying, tears. We want to come back to school. We don't like this online thing, because school gives them a lot of safety, a lot of comfort. And I know that physics lab gave me that. Many early mornings when I got to school, whatever was on my mind, and crying for me is a release, is a strength from then and now. So the fact that I was crying was a positive thing, because I was releasing whatever emotion I was going through. And then at the end of it, dry my eyes and let's do class. So nobody I think had any clue. Now, I don't think my teachers would chastise me for any of these things, that I did, because, we're just being girls, and girls will be girls, especially the good ones. Girls will be girls. So, it's your turn now to tell me, what were some of the things that you got up to in school, things that you don't think your teachers would ever believe, if they were to know today the sweet, innocent girl or boy that you were, your teachers would never ever believe that you did those things. Comment and let me know. And as usual, please like, share, subscribe, and click that bell so you'll know when I upload new videos.